Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Hey Eric, and today I'm recording podcast 13, and Utah just is having fifth winter. You know, we got warm last week a little bit. You know, we had a few days in the 80s, I think, and now today the high is like 55 or 50. It's ridiculous, but that's Utah. Just hoping, you know, I wish it would just stay in the mid 70s for a few weeks before we hit summer, but we got these big fluctuations, and it is what it is. Just happy to have sun and not snow. But I saw a good article today, well, an interesting article. So I subscribed to this email newsletter called Morning Brew. They send it out every morning, like at 5 or 6 in the morning, and it's always got fun articles to read, kind of like just a roundup of lots of interesting news. And this is what they wrote. Sales of existing homes, so this is about, you know, the signs of the housing market. Sales of existing homes fell 2.4% in April, so lowest level in almost 2 years. So what happened 2 years ago? The pandemic started over 2 years ago. So, you know, what are they saying here? You know, I don't want you to get fear about this, but they're saying sales have returned to normal, to what they were before the pandemic. Because the pandemic created this acceleration and this crisis in the housing market of people buying home, moving. So they're back to the normal. It's the third straight month that they've declined. So these last 3 months, housing sales have declined, but they're back to the normal, what they were before the pandemic. Showing how record prices and skyrocketing mortgage rates have made potential home buyers, you know, slow down. So all those things that we've talked about in the past have been slowing down the market and getting it back to pre-pandemic levels, which in my opinion is good. Do I see a recession, or excuse me, a housing crash? No, I don't. But here's a quote from Lawrence Yun, who's the chief economist at the National Association of Realtors. It looks like more declines are imminent in the upcoming months and will likely return to the pre-pandemic home sales activity after the remarkable surge over the past 2 years. So, like I said before, we're returning back to normal sales activity in real estate. We're not going to have this hyper market like we've had the last year or two where it's just bid, but probably just more of a traditional, you know, normal supply and demand equation rather than elevated demand and lowered supply like I've been talking about the last year. But they continue saying the surge isn't over yet. The median price of an existing home jumped to an all-time high of $391,000 in April, an increase of 14.8% from a year earlier. So that's nationwide. That's what National Association of Realtors is calculating. And an average home on the market stayed there for just 17 days before going under contract. So our days on market here in Utah, they were floating, you know, around 6, I think. They're probably at 10 right now. It just depends on the house, but that's still really low. And 17, you know, that's what it was nationwide. Utah was one of the super hot markets throughout the pandemic. So things are normalizing a little bit more. So here's how they concluded. If housing market downturn gives you nightmares about the 2008 financial crisis, experts say this cooling off period will be more ceiling fan than polar plunge. While the 2000s bubble was fueled by cheap credit, lax regulation, and rotten subprime mortgages, the boom over the last 2 years can be best explained by a sudden uptick in demand outpacing available supply. So just like I've been saying for months and a year, you know, this supply-demand equation has just been totally messed up throughout the pandemic. So this cooling off, they mentioned a ceiling fan, this cooling off is going to be good for the housing market to get more to a balanced, sustainable market. That's what I foresee, and that's what I've been saying for a while. So I think that's how it's going to pan out. And these interest rates have helped do that, obviously. On the other side, you know, the interest rates, the inflation, the things that the Fed has been doing to cool the market, while it's helping, I think it's helping the housing market, it's not helping other markets. The stock market's in crazy fear. We had consumer spending numbers come out. So Target and Walmart, two of the big retailers, they released their reports this last week, and they both showed slowed sales. Like consumer sales were down in Target and Walmart. Target's stock like plunged, I think it was like 20% based on those numbers. So, you know, because consumers, I think, are maybe afraid of inflation, they're worried about interest rates, they're slowing their spending down. You know, they are cooling, the Fed is cooling off the economy. And Target, they're obviously worried. Investors are worried that Target's not going to be able to meet their earnings needs, so their stock is hurt. The whole stock market right now is just bleeding. You've probably seen it, like you've heard about it. Just don't look at your retirement fund right now. Remember, just don't look at it. It's all just funny money until you actually cash it out, right? But yeah, so this just tells me the Fed's plan is working to slow sales, so pushing down inflation. I think next month we've already come down. It was 0.2% last month. So I think when the Fed numbers come out next month, I think it's going to be down even more. So we'll probably get in that 6% range of inflation, or 5%, hopefully. But just an idea that things are working. There's obviously more talk of recession now because of these numbers. I saw an article today that talked about Europe will be in a recession by the end of this year. There was an article I read talking about how England has this crazy high inflation similar to the United States. I think theirs was just a little bit higher. So they're all going to be doing similar things. These central banks are going to be doing similar things to slow down the overheated economies. And, I think a soft landing is probably going to happen. But the stock market, who knows? It is what it is, and they overreact and they go crazy, and maybe it's prolonged, but I don't think it will be. Another thing I wanted to talk about real quick. I toured a house. It was actually yesterday with a client. We looked at this house in the Rose Park area, and it's tenant occupied. So I always tell clients that are selling homes, if you have a tenant in there or if you live there, usually don't be there during showings. It's awkward to a buyer. They don't like it. Usually when you're selling a home, you want to depersonalize it. I've mentioned that a lot. But this tenant, he even took it to the next level because he wanted to be there. Maybe he worked from home. This gentleman there. But as we got there, he hit the record button on the camera on the front of the house, one of those Ring cameras. And then we go inside the house, and he's nice enough. He's like, yeah, tour, blah, blah. I'm telling him where we're going and stuff just to get his permission. And as we're leaving, he prints out a paper for me from an electrical company that came in and did an assessment or did some repairs on the home. And he's just like, yeah, so all this is really bad. This electrical company, he gave me this information about it. And he hands it to me. He's like, since you're the realtor, you need to disclose this to your client. I said, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the information. We'll talk about it. So we go outside after the showing, and obviously we get a little bit further away from that camera that he's recording us with. And I tell my client, I said, hey, that's just an example of a tenant trying to sabotage a sale. They probably don't want to move, so they don't want the person to sell the home. And obviously the electrical issues are a concern. Like a lot of these homes in Salt Lake City, if they haven't been updated, they probably still have knob and tube. My house had knob and tube in the attic and through most of the house. They might have cloth Romex, which is, outdated. And this house definitely has all that stuff. I'm sure of it. And that's going to come up in an inspection, and that's what that electrical company was talking about. And all those are concerns for a buyer, and it's something that you got to plan for and budget because, a lot of people aren't going to not buy a home just because it has outdated electrical or outdated plumbing. They're just going to plan on, okay, I'm going to live with that until I can fix it, or I'll fix it as soon as I get there, type stuff. But the moral of the story is that tenant, I think, is trying to sabotage the sale of the landlord's home. The house is not in great condition. It's in a great spot, but I think he's just trying to kill the deal. He doesn't want to move. I just thought it was entertaining. So if you are going to sell a house that you have a tenant in, I'd make sure that lease ends, let him move out, clean up the property, prepare the property, kind of like we talked about last time. Some of these crappy houses that are sitting on the market, it's because the sellers haven't prepared it enough to list it. They're not making it desirable. You want your home to be desirable when you sell it so people write offers. And especially with this market adjusting, if it's buyers are going to start having more opportunities, they're going to get more picky. Sellers aren't going to be able to just, throw mud against the wall and, know that someone's going to buy it. So just something to think about for buyers and sellers as we transition in this market. And if you're selling something with a tenant, make a plan, make a real good plan. On other things, though, I'm going on my first camping trip this weekend. I'm super excited about that. If you know me, you know I like camping, and I'm going to go down to Green River with a whole bunch of people and just camp for 2 nights, do some Dutch oven cooking, hang out with the kids. But as school is winding down, summer activities are getting going. You wouldn't know from the weather, but in no time it's going to be 90 degrees, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But that's kind of all I wanted to go over today in this short podcast. I finally got, I ordered another camera so I could do the guest thing, and I finally got that yesterday. It got delayed. They couldn't find the right address. But hopefully next week we're going to have our first guest on this podcast, and I'm so excited you're along for the ride. And it's always fun getting great feedback from people. I was on the morning bike ride up Immigration last week, and someone was talking to me about it there, and he gave me some positive feedback too. So I guess it's more than my mom and my sister watching this, which is good news. But thanks for watching. If you have any questions, or listening also, if you have any questions, drop me a line, hit me up. You can email. You can go to herrick.com. If you need help with housing, let me know. We can get that taken care of too. But until next time, see ya.